We're going to start with questions like this. Groovy Duck says, "Hello, gents. I was really glad to hear Mark Cerny shout you guys out in his presentation. That must have felt good for you guys, not to mention him directly complimenting DF in the interview. What was the conversation like with Sony in organising Oliver's excellent interview? Did Yol send a letter asking if you could, or did they reach out?" Some guy person says, "Now that you guys have been able to talk openly regarding the Mark Cerny interview, do you think there's only more credence towards adding 3D V cache to the PS6? Additional cache helps out CPU performance, GPU performance, allows you to keep at least part of the BVH in cache, and allows you to put much larger AI workflows all in cache. More than ever, it just seems that cache is king right now. Rich, are you finally on board the 3D V cache on PS6 trade? Choo choo! Exclamation point. This one from Dudley the Gentleman. "Hi DF crew, the reveal of Project Amethyst. I'm curious as to how custom a semi-custom part can be. AMD CPU, GPU and APU roadmaps are decided years in advance. What significant input can Sony give to AMD's IP in terms of future hardware design that amounts to more than the number of Zen X and UDNA X cores for a console APU? Separate question, will Sony's traditional approach to back compat when it comes to APU design potentially limit how forward-looking the PS6 APU could be?" I'm quickly going to attack the cache question. Clearly, the PlayStation 5 Pro had some bandwidth issues. They're just trying to get so much out of that memory, and there were some innovative solutions to that. Cache, though, it's extremely expensive. It's a massive silicon investment, and I'm still not really on board the Vcache for PS6 train. Don't know what you think about that, Oliver, based on, you were the man at the event.
That's true. I think it's a lot of extra die area. I think in line with what Alex has been talking about with the PS6 GPU, I think there is a case to be made that it should have a lot more cache than the PS5 Pro GPU and the PS5 GPU. But a separate die and stacking and all the complexity that it introduces, it doesn't feel very console-like to me. That feels much more PC-like. And also, the kind of gains you get in CPU performance, like maybe a 20% bump in a PC part, a high-end PC part, that's very meaningful. In a console, is it that meaningful for that extra cost? I'm not too sure myself. I don't really think that's the way they would go. I could be wrong. I don't think that's the way they would go. In terms of the logistics, it's not too complex. I think they reached out to Rich with the opportunity. And I'm very close, or comparatively quite close, to the Sony HQ because I live in the west coast of Canada. So it made sense to send me. And I finished my Dragon Age video, and then I was on a flight there, and then I did the interview. I got on a flight back. It was pretty simple. Nothing too onerous or strange. And then in terms of the machine learning accelerations, Sony has some input into that. The changes to RDNA that Sony needed to run PSSR and CNNs efficiently didn't really seem that huge. It seemed like a pretty lightweight customization, and I would expect that anything that was more involved than that would probably need some buy-in from AMD as well, I would presume there. Yeah, the backwards compatibility, that's going to be a tough ask for PS6 potentially. They need to have binary compatibility, but I'm sure they will find a solution there. But certainly that was a short-term impediment to them adopting RDNA 3 or more of RDNA 3 in the PS5 Pro design, or potentially RDNA 4, although we don't know what that looks like at the moment.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some level of backwards compatibility basically baked in at the core design level, simply because the concept of running a PlayStation digital library is basically crucial to the success of the system, as it was for the PS5 before it. So it's kind of got to be in there, and it's got to be in there at the basic architectural level, which I find quite fascinating. But yeah, I mean, in terms of, we don't really even know what UDNA-X is. We're expecting it to be some sort, UDNA rather. We expect it to be some sort of amalgamation of all of these technologies that are sort of emerging at this point. Ray tracing, you want the traditional raster element, you want machine learning elements in there. I'm wondering if PS5 Pro is some kind of early indicator of the approach that they're going to take with that. But again, we don't really know what UDNA really is at this point. You expect it to be like a unified design. Yeah, I don't really think there's too much more we can say about it at this point. I just think that obviously when the notion came about that the PS5 Pro would have 300 tops, there was some sort of assumption that there would be dedicated silicon for the machine learning side. But I actually think that the solution they came up with is limited in some respects, but obviously rather ingenious, similar to the ray tracing solution. It's, when you're dealing with consoles, the importance of die space, the importance of area, it's a defining factor of how much the system is going to cost. And, you can't have gigantically expensive consoles. I mean, I guess with the exception of the PS5 Pro itself, which is designed for a niche audience, they can get away with it there. They can have a $700 price point, but going forward, it's going to be much, much more challenging. And, going back to some of the things that maybe are being unearthed or showcased for the first time in the NVIDIA 2025 event, I'm wondering if we're looking at a complete sort of re-architecting of what we should expect from graphics technology or game technology going forward. And maybe that encompasses UDNA as well. Yeah, obviously it's a fascinating insight into the into the way PlayStation 5 Pro was put together, and I suppose it was nice to get a shout out from Mark Cerny. Great. I'm just happy the interview turned out really, really good as well. They were very forthcoming about that. Within, it's always a case of figuring out, where you're going to get the best answers. Because there are some sort of what you might call sledgehammer questions that, okay, you've got Mark Cerny in a room, let's ask about PS6. He's never going to talk about PS6, but at the same time, as a journalist, your audience is going to expect you to ask those questions. And I think what was quite good about the way you handled it, Oliver, was that we actually got quite a lot of insight into what we should be expecting from future designs and, how that translates into the, dare I say it, here and now. But yeah, that was really great stuff. Any comments on all of this there, John?
Just to say, yeah, Oliver did an awesome job on that interview. And by not asking questions like, so what does this mean for PlayStation 6? Tell me about PlayStation 6, stuff like that. You're never going to get an answer on those things. So you were very skillful and sort of almost like dodging bullets a la the Matrix on your way to getting good answers.
But I think we actually found out,
without shutting down the conversation.
We found out a lot about the philosophy that's going to be going into the next hardware design, which almost certainly is well in development at this point.
Yep. So how do we close the gap between this and the PlayStation 9 that was advertised back in the PS2 days, right? The little glass sphere thing. There's got to be a path to get to the PS9.
I should have asked Mark about that. Maybe he'd be more forthcoming about the path to the PS9.
The PS9, yeah.